let's take a look at how I did, or am doing, this crochet blanket for my teenager who's graduating this year from homeschooling. We have obviously 2 different colors. I will share with you what color those are in a second. I'm doing this all in single crochet, and what you can see, this part here and this blue part that you see, this is equal to 1 skein that I'm going to show you, and this is equal to 1 skein of the blue I'm going to show you. It is self-striping for both the colors, so I didn't have to think, which I like. You just let the yarn go and do its own little thing. So let me quickly show you the yarn and kind of what I did to start this blanket. This is part 1, obviously. Part 2 will be when I get this whole thing done. It is gearing up to be an 85-inch blanket at minimum, so it's definitely going to take me a while, because at this point I only have, I think, let me see, maybe 10-15 inches. And this is where a flexible tape measure will come in handy, and I'll explain more how I use this. But I used this because when I did the first skein, I wanted to know how much it took. So I went like this and I measured, and as you can see, I get around 4 inches with the first skein. So lets me know, okay, for this skein I want to use, I'm going to get about 4 inches. I'll talk about the mound chains and all that in a minute. I just wanted to address this. For the blue, this one is more. If I put this down and I go to here, you see I get almost 9.5 inches off the blue one. So let me show you the yarns I'm using, and again, keep in mind this measurements, because that will come in handy for this little trick, I guess, I'm going to show you guys. So let's take a closer look at the yarn. Before I show you the yarn, this is the crochet hook I'm using. It is a size H. I don't know how well that's showing up, but it is a size H or 5 mm hook. And 8.5. Wait a minute. Yeah. So it is a H/8. It says /5 mm. So if you know what that all means, that's what I'm using. Okay, so the first color you saw was this color. I've used this briefly before in another video, I believe, for a project, but didn't really actually show how it changed. So this one is Red Heart Super Saver, and it's called Stripes. And the exact name of it is Newspaper Stripe. This yarn, or this skein, as you can see, is a 5 ounce, 141 grams, but over here is what's important. The yardage on this is 236 yards. Again, I used this all the way until I could not use it anymore. I did it, I do believe in the first one I had a little bit of yarn left over, and I knew I couldn't make a row all the way back, so then therefore I cut it when I hit the last complete row that I could do. But I'm still counting how many yardage this is so that I knew that I had it. So this is what I'm using for the first color you see. And again, this wasn't intentionally going to be for my kid at first. It was actually a blanket I was working on that I was going to use this yarn, and then I was either going to do black, gray, or white. But when I started talking to my kid about it, he was kind of interested in having the blanket, so then I asked him what color he would want, and that's why you saw the blue. My kid likes blue, and for this one, let me go up a little bit because this one's a little bigger. Okay, this one says Yarn Inspirations Red Heart Super Ombre, and this color is True Blue. This I found at my local Walmart. The newspaper print yarn I got within the last year or so, I believe on Amazon. It was a 3-pack. I want to say at the time I bought it, it was like under $13. This I got at Walmart more recently, within the last week or so of working on this blanket. And this one I think ended up being about $7.50-ish almost a skein, and I need quite a bit of it. So I would have to go back and look at exactly how much I paid for the black yarn, but this one, again, for the amount of skeins I needed, I had to spend close to $50 to get this. But I'm sure you can find places that sell it cheaper, or obviously it all depends on what yarn you pick. Now if we go back up here to the beginning, we can see that this one says it's 10 ounces, 283 grams, and over here we have 482 yards. And as you saw in the beginning, this one gave me around 4, this one gave me about 9.5. Now what bothered me is I did a little math beforehand to try to see how much I would get with this one with the help of my math friend, and it estimated that I only should have got about 8 inches or something. So I got a little confused at how come 236 yards gave me about 4 inches, but this one at 482 yards gave me almost 1.5 inches more than I thought it would, especially when I know that my stitches are about the same. And then I realized, and this is what I'm going to show here, is if you actually look, I don't know if you can tell, but This one looks thinner than this one, and they're both a weight of 4. I did not mention that. Like if you look on the package, this says it's a weight of 4, and it does give you recommendations of what to use here. Let me zoom in real quick for those that want the additional information. So this tells me it's a weight of 4. I'm like, okay. So then I went over to the newspaper print. It's saying it is a weight of 4 as well. So I do not understand how if they're both the same weight, it equals such a difference. But again, if you look for being the same weight, and I'm not pulling them tight because I don't want people to say that, just loosely, tell me if you think this one looks a little longer or a little wider than that one. So yeah, I feel like there's a little discrepancy in it, but that's why it's important if you want to do the type of blanket I'm doing where you're just going the whole skein before you switch to the next color. That's where it's kind of important to kind of do the first skein, do the second, so that you can get an idea of like how much each is going to give you if you're not planning on changing it out a lot like I'm doing. And then what I did before I show you the exact process is I went on my Excel. I went into Excel and I created this sheet. This sheet is what I did to kind of get an idea of how many skeins of each color I would need. As you see here, I have inches, I have yards, and I have the color. So let me come up a little bit more so I can be at the right angle for you guys to see this. Okay, so let's aim it down a little bit. All right, so as you can see overall, newspaper print, the blue. That's how I kept track of it. Here tells me roughly how many inches I would get per skein. This is how much yardage the whole skein started out with. Now, for the blue one, I just finished it. I actually only have literally this much left that I knew would not make it over another row. I can't even tell you how much is in here, but that's not enough to do another row. Again, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm doing 200 chains, and I'll show that in a minute. So this is what I left. So I know that estimating high for the yardage, this is roughly how much yardage it's telling me to make this blanket this length. This is 85 inches. I do not know at the time how much this is in foot, so I will make sure I put how many feet that is right here. But again, this tells me 4 inches per black, 9.5 roughly per blue. So then if I look over here, I know I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the newspaper print, and I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the blue to get to this length that I want. This is something that you can use if you haven't used before. Again, if you're using a full skein and you're just going to be switching those back and forth, this is a great way to kind of plan it out and get a rough idea of how much you need. Again, I did not quite use all 482 yardage or whatever it said of it because I have a little bit left. But this lets me know that my blanket at the max roughly should be 85 inches. And so it's going to be the range I want. I want it to be at least 72 inches to be the length of my kid's twin size bed. It's going to be about 60 inches or a little wider than 60 inches for the width, which will be fine. It'll go over the sides a little bit. It'll go, which is fine. I could have made it bigger, wider, but I know I'm also going to do a border around this whole thing, and that's going to give me a little extra leeway into the thing. So this is a way that you can kind of plan it out, so to speak, if you're not worrying about the style. I'm only doing single crochet, so that's another thing that you'd make a note of. Maybe you want to do double crochet or triple, or you're going to do something totally different, but you know that you're going to use a full skein of yarn before you move on to the next. This could help you plan it out. So let's go ahead and look at how my beginning process was. I'm only going to do a little sample swatch for you guys because I'm not going to do the whole 200 chains I did, but again, I'll kind of explain how I did things. So let's go look at the beginning process. Okay, because again it's crochet, I'm only doing single crochet through this whole thing. When I get done with one color, I simply cut it if I need to, if it didn't finish a row or whatever, or wherever I want to cut it, and I simply just tie the next one to it. I know there's probably other ways to do that, but that might not leave a knot, but I'm not that talented yet. So I just tied the new one to the old whenever I did it, and I also weaved in the ends, which I will try to show in part 2 when it comes that time. Usually the ends, you can weave them in as you go, or you can wait to the end and weave them all in. Sometimes I wait to the end and kind of weave them in with the border. Sometimes I don't. So I will kind of explain that if I remember in part 2. So in part 1, we're just worrying about the chains. So I just created a slip knot. I left a little bit of a tail, and I did my slip knot. And again, I'm not going to do as many, I messed that up, okay. I'm not going to do as many chains as I did. Again, I did 200 chains to do this blanket, but I'm only going to show you a sample of maybe like 20 chains. So I had my yarn, and you put it on your thing. And the chains, I think, are both the easiest and sometimes the trickiest, especially if you know you're going to need a lot of them. So all I did is I had the yarn, and again, I'm not a perfect crocheter, and I just wrapped it around there and I brought it through. That's one chain. Wrap it around, bring it through, 2. Then you go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, get in there, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, get in there, 15. Sometimes it likes to fight you, especially if the yarn wants to fray. I noticed that a little bit with this one. 16, I'm only going to do 20 chains for the sample. 17, 18, 19, and get in there, 20. So I have 20 chains on here. And again, that's not that big. Again, I did 200. Remember that? I did 200 chains for what I'm working on. So this gives you your chains across, and then you're going to work your way up. Since this is one row, I want to do 2 chains at the end. So this is my last chain. I'm doing 1. I'm doing 2. And then I'm going to take this, and what I did is I went back. I knew I had 2 here. This is my last one. I went over 1, and then I went in and grabbed it. And then you do single crochet through it. So for my single crochet, let me make sure my yarn is relaxed. So for my single crochet, I went into the next chain. I'm going to try to zoom in here if I can. Okay, so I went into the next chain. Okay, grabbed my yarn, brought it through. I now have 2 loops. Wrap it again and bring it all the way through. I've done this on other blankets. My temperature blanket, I did single crochet with. I think even my, no, maybe not with my scrap blanket. I think that I would do. So again, if I'm going to do single crochet again, I'm going to go to the next chain. We have this one. We're going to go to the next chain, go through, grab the working yarn, bring it through. Okay, so you end up having 2 chains on there. Then you take and wrap it again. You bring them all the way through. And again, the first couple rows are a little harder because you have such a little bit of yarn to hang on to. And if you're like me, sometimes your hands don't want to cooperate. So that's all I'm doing is I go into the next chain, grab my working yarn, bring it through. So I have 2 on there, and then rewrap it and bring both of them through. And again, this one does fray a little bit. That's one thing I noticed, which kind of drove me nuts. And that's all I'm going to kind of do. Okay, is I'm just going to work through. Get back there. Like I said, the beginning is the trickiest part, but then after that you get a rhythm, especially if you're watching a TV show. So let me take that back out. Okay, so I'm going to quickly do the rest of the chains to the end of this row and then show you going back up again, just because it's a little easier for me to do this off camera. So let me go, and I'm going to continue doing what I just did all the way across my chains. Okay, so we're almost getting to the end. Let's see if I can change the lighting a little bit here. We're almost getting to the end again, and again I'm going into the next chain, just grabbing the yarn, doing my single crochet. Now we have this where we're going to be working our way up. So we're going to do 2 chains. And again, you might know someone that does this better. I don't know if I'm maybe missing a step on the foundation row of making crochet blanket. This is just the way I do it. I've never really had too many problems because once I do the whole thing, I usually do a border so that kind of hides any wonkiness. So again, I did my 2 chains up, and then I flip it over because I'm working my way back the other way. And I did my 2 chains up. So now what I want to do is I'm looking at this and I'm going not the right next stitch next to it. I want to go the stitch over. This is what I found helped my edges a little bit, and I'll show you in a minute if I can find that spot on my blanket. And then again, you're just going to do your single crochet. Okay, so that's all I'm doing is working each row at a time, doing my single crochet. And I might keep the sample going a little bit so that I can use this as a way to show you how I finish off the blanket. So this is our 20 stitch sample, and again I'm doing 200 chains for my blanket, and I'm doing that thing where I do 2 extra chains on the end and then I go over 1 stitch before I start doing my single crochet again, if that makes sense. But let me quickly show you what I mean about the edges, and you'll kind of see what I mean, that they're a little wonky. I'm not perfect, but I love when it's all done and you put a board around it. Nobody really notices those imperfections as much as you would. So let me quickly show you the edges on the blanket that I've been working on. Alright, real quick, I figured I'd pop this in here because I got thinking about it and I figured it's probably better to show. I only did another couple rows just to have a little bit more to work with. This is again still going off the black skein with the black, gray, and white. Remember, this is a little bit of yarn I showed you earlier. I'm going to show you how to quickly change colors so that way you know. I'm probably not going to be showing how to totally finish this because again, that's going to require me deciding whether I have a border or not. So in part 2, we'll talk more about how I completed it all the way. And I know that some people will probably be mad that I didn't include everything at once, but I think there's some that kind of understand that it's a long process, and I wanted to share kind of a journey as I went, similar with the temperature blanket. So again, we have our color here and we want to switch it to like this blue. I'm sure you can kind of, I mean, I know they're similar colors, but if I kept going, it'd be a while. And again, I'm going to use this sample when it comes time to show you guys taking it off. So I'm going to show you changing it to the blue, and then then you're just going to do the same thing you did before. So all I do is I find where my end of the one is that's on it. Okay, I cut a long enough tail. Again, you can weave in the tails later, and I can show you that when it comes to the next part 1. So I just give myself a long enough tail because I'll be weaving it in later. You move that one aside, and then you take and you find your end where I just had my end. Okay, the end to the new, which I just realized I got a knot. So 1 second. The other thing I did, which I didn't mention already, is I actually took the time to wind all the skeins up to make them more manageable for me into like the yarn cake. So I use my yarn ball winder to do that, and that's a tip I would give you as well. That way you can make sure there's no knots. So again, I'm just going to tie this one to that one as close to the bottom as I can, as close to where it's going to be, so that the 2 new chains are done in the new color. So I'm just trying my best to get in there. Again, if I'm not perfect, I will just be weaving the ends in later, but we're just trying to aim it to be as close to the base of where your crochet hook is. And you can double knot it if you choose to at this time. I usually do. And again, these ends that you see, they will be weaved in towards the end of the project. So make sure, again, you save this video because we will be sharing the final stuff in part 2. So again, I did that, and now I have my new blue as close to the base as I can. So that's going to be my new working yarn. Let me move that out of my way. My tails are just going to go off to the side, and then I'm going to get my new yarn. My hands will cooperate today. That's why I put off doing this video, because my hands weren't cooperating. And then I'm going to do my 2 new chains with the new color. Okay, and then remember, we don't go into the first one, we go to the second one to kind of help the wonkiness, and then we pull it all the way through. You go through the chain, grab your working yarn, pull it all the way through. And I don't know if you can actually tell that it does, again, look like it's a little thicker than the original one when they're both supposed to be the same weight. So again, and that's all you would do is work it over just like you did before. And keep in mind, see how it just frayed? That means I need to make sure the whole thing goes through when it does that. And again, into the next. And again, did it again. That's what I don't know. Let me know if lately yarn has been doing this to you too. Go in, pull it through, put it on there, pull it all the way through. So if you can see, kind of, our edge isn't too bad. I messed up here. I think I didn't come over enough. But the edge isn't too bad. And again, we got our edge over here that again doesn't look too wonky right now. It's just because it's new. And that's what we would do, is we would just keep working our color over. Now again, I might go back and forth with the colors for the sample to kind of mimic what I'm doing over there, but this is just to show you how you just simply add that one on there. And like I said, you can choose to weave these in now, or you can wait and weave them in at the end when you're doing the board. Weaving them in just means you try to hide them within the project, either going this way or this way. I liked it going this way. I don't know which way they typically do it, but you would just kind of use your crochet hook and you would hide them in to the project, which might be easier. So say you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to get too far. Make this loop a little big so you remember where you left off. Come over here and you see how you got your gray and your white again. Then you can just kind of find another loop. You might need a smaller crochet hook to do that, because I believe, like I said, this yarn wasn't right. But say you had the blue or let's say you want to do the gray first, try to hide the gray into the gray, if that makes sense, and then wait a little while and then try to hide the blue into that first row of blue you did. So because I already gray, this would probably be where I'd want to hide it. And again, you work your way into a stitch, grab that tail, and then you pull it back out. Then you might come over again, find another one that you can get in through. Again, I feel like this crochet hook works better with the blue than the gray. That's why I feel like they're not the same fully weight. So I would probably get a smaller crochet hook, and that's all I would do is I'd work down through the gray trying to hide it in there. And then after I do another couple rows of blue, I would go to the blue working tail and try to hide it just like you saw me do there. That's a quick tip. I can show more in the next video. But again, that's all I'm going to do. And remembering it, when I get to the end, you do 2 chains up and then you move over one. You don't put it in the first loop, you put it in the second row of chains and work your way back and forth. So let's get back to the other part of the video. Okay, so let's say turn the blanket sideways, obviously. This is where this is where I'm still working. This is my beginning. If you look at my beginning, can you see how wonky it is? That was when I forgot about taking the 2 chains up and going over like I just showed you. So my edges here are actually a little more wonky than if you look over here where I started doing that. These look a little more nice. But again, if I had kept it wonky, this will kind of get hidden if I do a border. But if my kid decides at the end that he doesn't want a border around it, then the edges look a little better over here than they did over here. But it's okay. Like I said, if you mess up and it looks wonky, again, you could do a border around it. And really, when you're cuddling with the blanket or under a blanket, you really don't notice that. So we really got to be careful about beating ourselves up for things that aren't perfect. If I had, like I said, if I forget and it goes back to being wonky, so be it. You know, that's going to be fine with me because I look at this as a sentimental gift for my kid. They're seeing me make it. It's going to be close to 85 inches when it's done, if not longer. And it's going to be something that they can mark. They're turning 18 this year. They're finishing up his homeschooling, which we've been doing since 9th grade. And I just feel like this blanket is more of a symbolic gift to give them, a little more emotional, a little bit more just like, hey, you've seen your mom do crochet and looming for years. Here, let's make you something that you can take with you when you decide to leave the nest, so to speak. So if you've got any ideas or plans for like a handmade gift for your graduates or anything like that, comment down below. I would love to know what everyone's kind of making for if they're going to make something for their kids or grandkids or family friend. I think this blanket idea is just nice, and I wanted to do this as a 2-part video because I didn't want to make it one video because I want to share this now. So if anybody wants to try to make something like this for anyone that's graduating. Where I live, seniors don't graduate till the end, closer to mid-June. I know some people in the different states are already done. So this would be the perfect time. The only thing I messed up with, guys, is I'm doing this in warm weather. We're getting ready to get warmer weather where I am in New York State. So when this starts getting heavier and heavier, it's going to be hot. So my kid better appreciate it more. The other, the other obstacle I don't know, and I would love your feedback on, is have you washed these kind of blankets that are really big? Like, I'm worried that with it being close to 85 inches and the weight of it or whatever, that this may not work in the washer we currently have, that I may have to take it to either a friend that has a bigger washer, or I'm going to have to figure out a way to maybe hand wash it when needed. So leave your ideas about that down below. I want to know people's journey of washing like these heavier blankets. My temperature blanket, I haven't used it enough to have to wash it because I have a cat, so that's kind of tucked away in my closet. My scrap blanket, that one wasn't small enough to put in the wash, but the temperature blanket and this one I'm a little worried are too big, and I may have to spot clean it more. So give me your thoughts down below on that, and let me know if you're going to try to do any kind of simple blanket. Again, this is all done in single crochet. You can try doing double crochets, triple crochet, but I hope by showing you the tentative way that you can take the knowledge that you have of how many inches each gives you, if you want to keep it super simple like this, which I think is great. A super simple single crochet, you do a full skein in one variegated yarn. This is, like I said, in another, you get a design without having to stress out about it, if that makes sense. And I know there's a lot of people like me that can get intimidated by the more intricate projects, and this is simply let the yarn work for you. So I hope you all have a great day, and I can't wait to see you guys' projects. Make sure you check all the social links down below to connect with me, and again, share ideas of videos you'd like to see in the future. I've got some painting videos coming up, more loom knitting. I don't know about crochet, though I am kind of wanting to expand a little bit into my crochet world We shall see. But again, share ideas down below of videos you might want to see, and if I think I can handle it, you may see it in a future video.